This conference will now be recorded.
Hello and welcome to our 7th GRN webinar. Today we'll be discussing life after lockdown, what graduates want from employers. This is the 7th in our lockdown series, an invitation-only event to members of the Graduate Recruiters Network, or GRN. So we're delighted to have many members along today who responded to my invitation, 137 bookings in fact. And we've got members from a broad range of companies and sectors. So companies like Airbus, VW, Ted Baker, IBM, to name but a few. So we're delighted to have you all here today. So, first of all, an introduction for those who are new to these events or maybe unaware of who I am. My name is Dan Hawes. I'm the co-founder of Graduate Recruitment Bureau, or GRB. We're the go-to platform for high-caliber university students, graduates, and recruiters. We've been doing it for a while. We've seen many downturns, but not of this scale, as we were established back in 1997 by two graduates, myself and Chris Cater. We've now steadily grown the business. We have around 65 staff and over 1,800 clients across all sectors, companies such as the Post Office, IBM, Unilever, and Ocado. So some big names there, but also several fast-growing SMEs that maybe aren't so well known, but they need first-class graduate talent to grow. So our recruitment experts have successfully matched over 8,000 graduates with full-time graduate level jobs in that time. Now, Graduate Recruiters Network, or GRN, was set up by myself back in January 2009. This was originally for our clients, but then we also extended it to our friends. Generally, the aim is to bring together not just our clients, but companies who are involved with graduate recruitment. So the kind of level we aim at are HR advisors, HR business partners, recruitment directors, talent leads, that kind of thing. And the aim is to discuss current topics. We usually have a mix of different presenters from different backgrounds, covering all aspects of graduate recruitment. Generally, the emphasis is on members to learn from these presenters, but also to share best practice amongst themselves in a confidential environment to enhance your learning and help you become better graduate recruiters, which is more important now than ever before. So we've actually seen our membership increase recently by about 325 new members in the last 3 months. So we're on about 2,770 members at the moment. Now we're trying to aim to get 10,000 members by 2025, companies from all over the world ideally. So we're slowly moving in that direction. Now, our membership is very broad on purpose. We want a nice range of companies, not just big, well-known FTSE 100 firms, but also fast-growing SME recruiters. And there are many of these companies that go below the radar, that aren't on the Times Top 100, for instance, but they're all interested and involved in hiring graduate talent. Now, our members usually are invited to masterclass events in person. We've been running those since 2013, and our presenter today has been along to those in 2014 and 2016, but our venue has closed temporarily during the pandemic. So instead, we've been running fortnightly webinars during the lockdown period instead. So we have the same kind of speakers, the same kind of debates, but it's just happening online in the meantime. And they've been very popular. Conversations have carried on the forum on LinkedIn. I've been updating the blog. I've been running regular surveys on a monthly basis with members. We're keeping our podcast up to date. And we also have a quarterly newsletter, which gives you a roundup of what's been going on. Membership is entirely free. It is invitation only. And we're delighted today to hear from a speaker, as I say, who's been along to a couple of events before and is going to share something from some of their research that they've been doing. Now, our presenter is Josephine Hanson. She's the MD at YouthSite, who are an independent youth research organisation, and they have a huge panel of students, and they are the go-to people for anything regarding student research, student behaviour, that kind of thing. So they have their finger on the button, and we're very interested to hear particularly about what graduates are looking for from employers when eventually we get out of this lockdown episode. So I'll hand over to Josephine. If you do have any questions, use the chat facility on the top right. And after Josephine has spoken for about 40 minutes or so, we'll have 20 minutes for your questions as well. This is being recorded, so if you need to duck out for whatever reason, I will send you a link to our YouTube channel to enable you to catch up. So if I can pass over to Josephine, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dan, and hello everyone. I'm Josephine Hanson from YouthSite. I hope you're all well. I have to apologise in advance for a slightly croaky voice. I'm in good health, but my voice seems to be saying something slightly different. So as Dan introduced, I head up YouthSite Research. I've been in research for about 20 years now. I started working in a political consultancy back at the turn of the millennial, and then moved into digital innovation for a few years, and now I focus on helping some of the biggest brands and of course universities engage with Gen Z, whether that's to grow market share or to recruit top talent. For those of you who may not know YouthSite, we are an award-winning research consultancy, but I guess more importantly, we're one of the longest running youth research agencies out there. We've got a dedicated higher education team that's worked with almost all UK universities in our 14 years, and we have a brand team who work with global leading brands, helping them attract more Gen Z customers, and crucially attracting, for today, more talent. I guess a lot of the data I'm going to be sharing today will be coming from our Gen Z tracker called State of the Youth Nation. There's quite a lot of data. I'm afraid I am a researcher, so for me that makes a really great presentation. And our tracker State of the Youth Nation focuses on 16 to 24s, and we've been tracking decision making and behaviour since 2015. So it's a great resource for us to be able to see, especially at this time, direction of travel, or whether the direction of travel has changed since lockdown and the pandemic. Many clients, as you can see, are members of our State of the Youth Nation product. It's great, I guess, particularly at this time where you can get access to instant data. We've been tracking over 500 questions since 2015. So you don't necessarily have to find any extra budget or any capacity within your team to be able to find the answers that you want quickly. It's all available on an online dashboard. But I guess the reason that I was inspired to write this presentation today was this particular statistic. The number of young people who are saying that they know what to expect from the world of work has nearly halved in the last 3 years. So if you think back to June 2017, I guess 2017 will be remembered for the Grenfell tragedy, for Brexit, and the year that Trump was inaugurated as president. But it was also, I guess, the year that Gen Z felt that they were aware, or the majority were aware of what to expect from the world of work when they arrived. Fast forward to the pandemic, and now just 1 in 3 feel confident that they know what the world of work is going to be like for them. I guess as a generation, Gen Z are not necessarily the most optimistic. Nearly half say that they don't see a positive financial future for people their age. And 2/3 say that their trust in the government is at an all-time low. And as I say, just to put into context and using our trend data, this number in April this year was 44. So only 44% of young people said their trust in government was at an all-time low, compared to June this year, where it's 63%. So I guess we're starting to see a bit of intergenerational tension in the data that we're collecting, and maybe a bit of lack of trust in those in power to do the right thing by young people. So recently quoted in the Telegraph, Nick Hillman, who's the director of the Higher Education Policy Institute, one of our favourite clients, he said that it's a terrible time to be a young person. And I have to say, I don't think he's wrong. Just a selection of headlines from the press recently. So from the Mail, Generation Z struggling with moving back with their parents in the coronavirus outbreak. I think everyone could imagine what that must be like. In the I, so GCSE and A-level students worrying about their teachers' predictions, downgrading them because they're obviously robbed of their chance to shine in their exams this year. Young people overeating as they battle lockdown anxiety, maybe something that you hadn't necessarily considered could be impacting young people's lives. Young people facing economic scarring from COVID in City AM. And I guess it's this last headline that I'll probably address in a bit more detail in this webinar. So I guess, what do people predict will happen to this cohort? I don't really want to call them Generation COVID, but a lot of people are at the moment. The Resolution Foundation, who do a lot of great work, so they say that 1 in 3 18 to 24 non-student employees have already lost their job or been furloughed. So that's in comparison to 1 in 6 older adults. Nearly 1 in 3 graduate schemes have been cancelled, according to a report in the Telegraph, and I'm sure everyone on the call today will be aware of this particular fact. And according to IPPR, the think tank, 1 million young people will be jobless in 2021. I guess to put this into context, last February, April time, there were 450,000 unemployed. Fast forward a year, now there's 530 unemployed young people. And I guess IPPR are saying by this time next year, that number will have doubled. So from the 530,000 we've got at the moment to 1 million. So I'm inclined, I guess, at this point to agree with Nick Hillman and say that it is a terrible time to be a young person. And for the rest of this webinar, I'm going to be talking about, I guess, new pathways to success. I think you guys will know some of this, but it's probably worth a bit of a recap. I'll also be talking about the need for balance when recruiting and managing Gen Z. And then finally, I look to the future in terms of the immediate blind spots, and then I guess a little further on what it might be like for Gen Z as they progress in their career. So for section 1, young people have reframed ambitions and new pathways to success. I'm sure this is probably said about every generation, to be honest. However, I think that the stars do seem to be aligned for young people at the moment. And, you know, with the pandemic, with employment, with education, they are kind of questioning how and what is the best route to get the job that they've dreamed of. So I'm sure that everyone attending today is interested in attracting top talent, but it's probably worth pausing for 1 minute and to talk about the difference between millennials and Gen Z A lot of people assume that millennials are young people nowadays, but I'm afraid millennials at their eldest are nearly 40 years old, and at their youngest sort of 26. So it really is Gen Z, who are the 25 and unders, that we need to be thinking about at this point in time. So millennials, you're probably very familiar with them, and there's probably a lot of them in your workplace. You might be one yourself. Most entered the world of work at a difficult time, arguably, but they did remain positive about the situation. There seemed to be less pressure for them in making decisions about their career, often leaving that decision until after they've graduated to pursue a career that interested them. They will probably be remembered as the entrepreneurial generation, changing the system, being innovative, wanting to freelance or work in startup culture. They lived by YOLO, so you only live once, and often had FOMO, a fear of missing out, and it just meant that they lived very spontaneously in the moment when they were young. And as a result, they have been characterized as job hoppers, typically staying in a job for around 2 years before thinking about moving on. Okay, so that should be a familiar picture, hopefully. In contrast, for Gen Z, they are a realistic generation about the opportunities that they have. They're pragmatic, and as a result, they are also quite anxious because they're seeing life for what it is. They know they have fewer opportunities compared to previous generations who have gone before them. They started planning their future career when they were at school. They definitely link education with employment, and they are seeing it as, I guess, education being the second most important reason, employment the second most important reason for choosing a university. Those university links are crucial for them to choose which university to attend. Gen Z like to play by the rules, or at least they do play by the rules, which makes them different to millennials. They don't necessarily feel empowered to change the system. They'll toe the line, but they'll also work hard to start their career. Compared to millennials, Gen Z love JOMO, so the joy of missing out. For them, and this is before lockdown, staying in was the new going out. It was Netflix over the cinema, it was a meal over the pub, and now they're living in lockdown. So for them, being at home is a much bigger thing than it was for millennials. And I guess finally, for Gen Z, they're pursuing their dreams via side hustles rather than risking everything by doing their own ventures. They're kind of happy with that division between work and play, which is something, I guess, that millennials definitely were trying to merge and probably still want to. So that was a bit of a whistle-stop tour, so you can, I guess, get into the mindset of Gen Z when I'm talking about them. And you can see the differences sort of starting to appear between millennials and Gen Z in the workplace. So for Gen Z, stability is really their ambition, especially since COVID. Looking at our State of the Youth Nation data, we see a dip in risk-taking behaviour and bold ambition. Wanting to get to the very top of your career has dropped. That's the blue line. 10%.
No, stop it.
In the last 4 years. And agreement with the statement, the only way to get ahead is to take some risks, in purple, has dropped 10 percentage points in the last 2 years. So I guess this suggests that Gen Z are happy with just getting a job. They're not wanting to rock the boat. Getting a job will really make them happy. They know that it's hard out there, and they're not under any illusion that they're going to be running the company anytime soon. And I guess in tandem to this, we're seeing that the kind of more secure, or maybe more people related, or sort of caring sectors are increasing in popularity in our data, offering maybe more security, but maybe a little bit more danger, arguably, in the health sector and medicine. while at the same time we're seeing the creative industries take a bit of a hit. So, you know, they're the industries that are seeing budgets being cut as a result of the pandemic and, of course, lack of job security. So Gen Z are asking, I guess, what role does university play? And again, looking at our data here from State of the Youth Nation, we see that there's a drop in agreement with getting a good education is the only way you can make sure you can get the job that you want. Going from 3/4 in 2005 when we first asked it, down to 59% in June 2020. I guess Gen Z know that they have to be well-rounded. They have to have a good education. They have to have relevant skills. They have to have work experience. They have to have the right attitude, and they have to be flexible. Those are all the skills that are being required for graduates now. And I guess education is just one piece of that puzzle that is being asked of them nowadays. And so, as a result, Gen Z are being more demanding to the universities that they're attending. They want more placements, they want stronger links to industry, and they want more cutting-edge ideas that relate to the world of work, not just academia. So while preparing this webinar, I was obviously looking online, and I found this piece of research commissioned by Barclays Apprenticeships, and it really took me back. According to their survey, 48% of graduates regretted their decision to go to university, and a similar number, 44%, said that they don't need a degree to do their current job. So that's nearly half of graduates, which is quite shocking. I'm sure that many of you today have a lot to say about these two particular statistics, but I guess as someone who doesn't work in graduate recruitment, I just found this a very interesting and surprising part of the story that I was kind of building for this presentation. And so, of course, by sharing that last screen, I will be talking about higher apprenticeships, but just very briefly, because I guess it makes sense that Gen Z will be starting to consider them going forward. There's the example from Nick here. He said, by the time most people my age come out of university, I'll have 3 to 5 years experience, I'll have a degree, but they'll still be trying to find a job, which is hard. I guess higher apprenticeships are offering that kind of stability that they're craving. They seem to be less risky, they seem to deliver less debt, they seem to make you ready for the world of work. But I guess the jury is still out in terms of progression, and I guess that's the crux there. Is a degree the key to unlock management and beyond for young people? So what does this all mean, I guess, and how do I interpret it as someone who focuses on young people all the time? Well, I guess Gen Z's ambitions revolve around stability now more than ever. So when engaging with them, attracting them, you need to be thinking about how stability can motivate them. They want to be ready for work also the day after graduation. They want to be immediately ready, so they'll be doing a lot of work pre-graduation to become as ready as they can be with internships, with societies, volunteering. They want to be that real well-rounded person for you, but they're also a sort of, as a result, and I guess the point of showing you that contrast between millennials and Gen Z, they're coming into the workplace at a very different time. And they're probably wanting to form much stronger bonds with employers because it is so uncertain. And we're predicting that they will remain more committed for longer, or at least longer than millennials were when they were young. Section 2, here, we're looking at young people wanting balance from work, and they are balancing their work differently. And I guess you need to adapt to this new balancing act in order to retain and attract talent. So what do we mean by balance? I guess, to put it crudely, Gen Z are very wary of millennial burnout. Almost 3 in 10 millennials say that they are often burnt out by work. What do we mean by this? I guess working long hours, prioritizing work over friends and family and hobbies, and just generally feeling stressed and tired. So that's 3 in 10 who feel this often, and 7 in 10 who have experienced at least some burnout at one point or another. So millennial burnout seems to be a bit of a norm for the generation ahead of Gen Z. But for Gen Z, I guess for them, they want to put their mental health first and they want balance. 8 out of 10 Gen Z agree that a good work-life balance is more important than earning lots of money. So they want that balance more than they want the salary. 56% say that they're taking steps to take care of their own mental health. So looking at our data and looking at what that actually means, it means that 50% of Gen Z are already actively meditating or practicing mindfulness regularly. And I find that quite a high statistic. 50% are meditating and practicing mindfulness just off their own back. And I guess Gen Z want to be then recognised as a person and not a cog in the machine. You know, they want organisations to put steps in place that will help them be happier and healthier while at work. You know, there's the recent campaign to be a mental health first aider. These are the sort of things that really are attractive to young people and give that message that you do care about them beyond them actually delivering efficiencies in your workplace. And I guess continuing on that theme, in terms of being not being a cog in the machine, 63% of Gen Z are confident in having conversations with senior management. I don't know if you remember what you were like when you first started in the workplace, and how confident you felt talking to senior management. But for Gen Z, they want to be seen and they want to be able to have those conversations. They want to understand what senior management do. They want to understand what the business as a whole does, and they want to be part of it rather than just be seen as someone who is doing those entry-level tasks, and that they'll be let into the boardroom or let into some of those conversations when they're a little bit more experienced. So I guess for Gen Z, it's about purpose, not pay. And I'm conscious that people are talking about purpose a lot at the moment, especially when it comes to young people. But I think that these statistics are quite interesting, especially when you're thinking about attracting young people. You know, 61% agree that in a job, being able to make a difference is more important than earning lots of money. And 8 in 10 say that having a job that I'm passionate about is more important than sort of earning lots of money. So I don't necessarily want you to take from this that you can get away with paying Gen Z less, because I guess that could be one interpretation of this slide. That's not my point. The point is, I guess, to realise that Gen Z are interested in your organisation. They're interested in what you do, and if you can figure out sort of how your business contributes positively to the world, even if it's just a little bit, be vocal about that and talk about that when you're speaking to Gen Z, because they will listen, because they want to hear. And I guess putting this into context in terms of sort of attributes that young people find attractive in a potential employer. So this was just done last month in June. So Gen Z want to believe in you as an employer. So being ethical, as you see, is the third most attractive attribute for Gen Z, after offering a good working environment. We'll come to that obviously a little bit later, and also progression. Progression being important because I guess obviously they're joining the workforce, so they can only really go up, but also recognizing that they're coming from education where all their stages in progression have been mapped out for them. And so to go into the workplace, which sometimes is less mapped out, can be a bit scary for them. So just recognizing that talking about progression and making that more visible is something that young people really want. But I guess I've included an example here from GAP, who recently pledged to double the number of Black and Latin American employees at all levels in their headquarters and increase Black employee representation in stores. Thinking about this sort of ethical, taking a stand, sort of purpose, positioning. This was their response to the Black Lives Matter movement that we're seeing at the moment. They called it Stand United. But what's, I guess, interesting about them, and something I wanted to share, is that they're recognizing that they may not have got it right in the past, but they're wanting to work on it now. And I think that is a really important approach when you're trying to think about being ethical, because I know a lot of companies are scared of going there because they don't want to be shut down based on history or even other things that are going on in the company that are beyond their control. It's probably worth also pointing out here, just as we're on the slide, that the traditional things that were important to millennials are much lower down in the list. So things like having traveling opportunities, maybe also affected by COVID, obviously. You know, being able to work for someone that is successful or well known in the sector, or global. These things are less important to Gen Z. They want to be doing a job that is meaningful. So I guess, what does this all mean? Well, for Gen Z, they want you to have a personality, and they want you to recognise them as people as well. It's about respecting personal and private lives, respecting their health, and just respecting them as people and not part of a machine. They want to make a difference, and it's extremely motivating. So talk about the bigger picture, share successes, as well as projects that have maybe good intentions behind them, but they might not actually be sort of delivering anything particular yet. But the fact that you guys are thinking about that and wanting to do it will be of interest to Gen Z. And finally, you don't have to get everything right. It's just about being fair and honest. As I said, Gen Z are realistic and pragmatic. They definitely don't expect things to be perfect. So bear that in mind when you're thinking about ways to communicate with them. And then I guess my final section, so what should fresh graduates be expecting from the future workplace? Let's remember that chart at the beginning of the webinar. So yeah, so 1 in 3 16 to 24s feel that only 1 in 3 feel that they know what to expect from the world of work. So that means 2/3 just don't know what to expect. And to some extent that is understandable. We are in a period of a lot of change. But I've got a video now of young people talking about what they see the future of work to be like. These are young people who are from our panel, and they have recorded videos for us using their mobile phone or their laptop. And I guess while watching this, I probably prompt you to try and cast your mind back to when you were young. And think, you know, would you be as thoughtful as maybe these young people at this stage? I'll share the video. There's subtitles because we're doing everything online. I don't know if the sound and the subtitles will all match up. We were going through it earlier. It was getting better every single time we tried, so hopefully it will be perfect. But I'm just warning you now, just in case it's a little bit out of sync. So here's the video.
There is no potential growth in the career, and it doesn't really help me give me transferable skills.
My main concern for the future is that a lot of machines and robotics are going to be replacing real humans.
With the progress of AI and technology, I am worried that I may be replaced.
Fears I might have is towards things like Brexit, which how that will affect the industry.
They won't offer you a job because you don't have the experience, but then how are you going to get the experience when people aren't offering you those jobs? And it's just a vicious circle, really.
Trying to get over the hurdle of not having the experience that jobs might wish for at entry level.
Employers nowadays seem to be looking for more experience, and they aren't bothered about a degree or the right qualification.
Unpaid internship. I want to be able to make a living out of it, to have a full-time job. But where's the opportunity, and whether the opportunity will be paid enough to support you full-time? That's one of my worries.
One of my concerns for the world of work is future salaries not keeping up with the cost of living.
The economic situation that I'm worried about, because if and when the next financial crisis hits, which is pretty soon, I think, there will likely be massive layoffs, which I'm worried might include myself.
It's difficult to kind of stay focused on the job, and we don't know where you're going to be in the next kind of 6 or 12 months.
So hopefully you were able at least to follow that in terms of the subtitles. So apologies if it didn't come through brilliantly there. But I don't know about you, but when I watched this video for the first time, you know, I was struck by the knowledge that these young people had about and the consideration they'd put into their answers about what the future of work might look like. I definitely wasn't looking that far ahead when I was young, and I just wouldn't have been aware of those sorts of issues. So I guess this is just speaking to a point that for young people, they are thinking quite differently to other generations that have gone before. So let's look for the final part of the presentation, a little bit of some immediate blind spots, and then to some of those longer term ones. So of course, you know, they did want a good working environment. Where will Gen Z be working? There's a lot of speculation about this. I guess lockdown and the mass introduction of remote working is kind of making employees and employers, I would say, rethink how they're going to be working in the future. A recent survey found that 60% of employees said that they want to work from home more once they get back to the office than they did before lockdown. I guess this suggests that there's going to be sort of contract negotiations coming up. There's going to be maybe for new roles, the idea of including working from home as a standard thing in job descriptions in some way, shape or form will be happening. And I guess we need to be prepared to know what might work for young people. In that same survey, I guess 1 in 5 18 to 35-year-olds said that they would consider moving to a different area if they could work from home more. This one is the one that actually surprised me. You kind of think about maybe middle-aged people moving out of cities, not necessarily young people, but remember Gen Z are all about JOMO, the joy of missing out, and so staying in is the new going out for them. So maybe this speaks to that bigger trend of which working from home can give them that balance I was talking about at the beginning of the webinar. And Twitter, interestingly, have already told all their staff that they can work from home forever if they want to. So they're already reimagining what it's like to be in the world of work in the future. And we're seeing cross-party groups, so from all the different political parties discussing the viability of a possible 4-day week in the UK to help us recover from COVID and to help the economy get back on track, which is something obviously we would not have considered just a few months before. But I guess be aware of the long-term consequences of sort of working from home, especially for those young people who are starting out in their careers. So 50% say that they miss having those in-person conversations with colleagues, and 49%, so more or less 50%, miss those relationships that they forge in the office. And relationship building is just a bit harder virtually. I know that you can see each other, you can even see into people's homes, but it's not the same. And I guess it's for young people entering the workplace, it's also maybe those water cooler moments, those overheard conversations, sort of hearing what people are doing, but not necessarily knowing who they are in the office. Maybe without seeing people face to face, you might not know or understand the hierarchies that are within the workplace, or even the networking possibilities that you have within an office with just everyone together. I know I certainly benefited once for a job offer because I was sitting outside somebody's office and I was talking to them a lot, sort of talking to them about what they did. And I was asked to apply for a job within their team. You know, working remotely does not necessarily offer those types of opportunities that are very ad hoc and unplanned. And so I guess we're seeing maybe a bit of intergenerational difference happening here as well. So Gen Z in blue, older, 55 plus in pink. So Gen Z in blue, much more likely to say that they are working longer hours while they're at home, 63% compared to those who are 55 plus. You have to remember that people are coming to the idea of work from very different places, and the idea of working from home is such a luxury probably to those who are from older generations. But for Gen Z, you know, they've come from university, they have had to be studying and working at home. It's really something that they can get on with, and nothing really gets in the way. Well, I'm sure if you're slightly older, there's a lot to get in the way at home, lots of different commitments and responsibilities. And then also, I guess, Gen Z are more likely to want to go back to their normal place of work immediately compared to the older generation. So Gen Z, despite working hard at home, are keen to get back and have that contact. But notice the difference in the percentages there. You know, a quarter want to go back immediately. You know, it's not 50%. It's not the majority that are desperate to go back, but that more Gen Z are keen to go back than their over 55 colleagues. So I guess what does this mean for the future of work? Well, Gartner has recommended that we imagine the workplace, and I guess that means offices, to be places that are for resilience, not efficiency. So collaboration, coming together. You know, that last stat, Gen Z not necessarily all into this independent working and sort of coffee shop culture that millennials were. They want to have somewhere to come and be, and to meet other people and to understand the world of work from a physical perspective. And progress, as I mentioned earlier, definitely needs to be mapped out and not left to chance for graduates. It's becoming harder and harder for graduates to be able to develop those meaningful connections, especially working online. And so if you're able to map out so they know what they're expected to be achieving, or the opportunities that are going to come their way, potentially the anxiety of missing out on those water cooler moments, or as I had the opportunity to go for a job because I just sat outside, no, I didn't sit outside, obviously my desk was outside somebody's office. You know, they may be less anxious that these things they're missing out on. And then of course the possibility of greater task-based employment could be coming down the line for graduates rather than development programs. This is looking into the short term. While inductions are difficult while you're working remotely, you know, being able to give that bigger picture is a lot harder. People are talking about potentially hiring younger people on contract basis rather than a graduate trainee scheme. These are things that are likely to happen in one form or another going forward. But looking to these long-term blind spots, I guess, and the young people in the video, hopefully you were able to catch it. They mentioned most of these already. So the fourth industrial revolution, hopefully it won't look like this, us fighting robotics with lightsabers, but machines and AI will be replacing many jobs within the workforce in the next few decades. And I guess Gen Z are worried about AI in the workplace, understandably so. PwC estimate that 30% of UK jobs are at risk from automation. And I guess they say as AI will be contributing 15.7 trillion to the global economy just in 10 years' time, that is the equivalent of the current output of China and India combined. So within 10 years, we're going to see massive, massive change in the workforce. And I guess it's going to be Gen Z who are going to be bearing the brunt of all of this. And if Gen Z, I guess the question for Gen Z and for young people is what will happen to these entry-level jobs that AI are going to be sort of doing? What will an entry-level job look like? You know, if it's going to be more sophisticated, is it going to be sort of a sideways move? Will there be any entry-level jobs left? Well, encouragingly, the World Economic Forum has said that yes, AI will be sort of destroying a lot of jobs, but it will be creating more jobs than it will be destroying. So they're predicting a kind of leveling out rather than a dip in jobs going forward. However, I guess what this does suggest is that industry will need to sort of build stronger links with universities, because it will be those graduates coming into employment who will be prepared for this new world, because they, I guess, everything will be new to them, so they'll be more accepting of it. There's going to be another big challenge for employees going forward, which is dealing with how this change will affect older employees and how they are going to be feeling about having so much AI in their day-to-day world. So for this final section, what does it all mean for Gen Z? Well, looking to the future, I guess it was always going to be hard for Gen Z, COVID or no COVID. The workplace will definitely be changing in the next 20 years, and it will be the millennials who will be managing this change, and it will be Gen Z who will be sort of entering this completely new world of work. So it's also quite likely that Gen Z will be the first generation then that will feel completely comfortable working alongside this AI compared to, for example, older colleagues in your organisation. And finally, entry-level jobs that will be replaced by AI. How will Gen Z get that basic training? I guess, you know, induction traditionally goes, you know, from the ground up. It will all have to just be completely reimagined. What do we need entry or graduates or young people to know when they're entering the world of work? So that's it for my my presentation. I'm kind of almost done. There's this slide and one more. Just to remind you that a lot of the data that I've been sharing today has come from our State of the Youth Nation tracker. It's kind of got everything that you need if young people are your focus. I was able to write this presentation just by looking at the dashboard in a matter of hours rather than having to take time to something with strategic decision making or tactical decision making, get in touch. The email is on screen. Dan, over to you.
Josephine, thank you very much. It was a very engaging presentation. So thank you for that, and your team, and of course all the students in the panel. Of course, all of our worlds have turned upside down, but to hear it was a Daily Telegraph saying it's a terrible time to be young, that's really depressing, because just when they're supposed to be having the time of their life, they're bearing the brunt of this to protect our more vulnerable people. So it's a very tricky situation for them as they transition into the workplace. We've got 10 minutes for a few questions, but we will carry on the debate on the LinkedIn forum as we will run out of time. Josephine, if you could go to the slide where you listed, I think it was maybe the top 15 criteria that graduates are looking for from an employer.
Yeah, we're getting there. Have I gone? I think I've gone past it. 1 second. There we are. There we go.
Lovely. So good working environment, career progression, ethical, you highlighted there. You know, particularly employers that stand for a cause resonate very much with Gen Z and the wider population. So that's an interesting selling point, I guess, if you're an employer. And although it's not in there, working from home, I'm getting onto, is that you said 60% of your panel would want to work from home now, based on the pre-lockdown. As of now, they'd much rather work from home, even though they're actually working longer hours, 63%. So from an employer's point of view, they're probably thinking, well, if we can set up people remotely, they're actually going to work longer for us. You know, whether that's an efficient use of their time, we'll have to find out. But the downside of working from home, of course, particularly for new starters, is that it's very hard for them to kind of absorb the culture of being in the office, the serendipity of conversations and encounters, developing relationships, which for a lot of people in their first job, it's their social circle as well, you know, their immediate friendship circle, and also developing soft skills may suffer. So it's been an interesting experiment, and we'll see how many employers are able to embrace working from home. I mean, it does depend on the job, but that in itself could be a very good selling point, that after a period of training, we can be flexible, you can work from home, you know, you don't have to commute and all the rest of it. So this whole, you know, where we work from now, be it remotely or in the office, is completely up for debate. So we had a few questions along those lines about, you know, the practicalities of actually doing that.
Yeah, I think it's I guess the thing that sort of stood out to me when I was thinking about this is that, you know, every year we see a massive influx, don't we, in London, of graduates all coming to London to get the graduate job. You know, what is going to happen going forward when greater flexibility is being offered? Is obviously people will still be coming, but it does sort of put that expected sort of influx of graduates to London into question, because are they doing that for London? Are they doing it for social? Are they doing it for the job? Obviously, there are a lot of benefits to doing that, but there may also be a lot of things that they're leaving behind that they don't want to in order to prioritise their career. In terms of the 60% that I shared on the slide, that was 60% of all workers, actually. It wasn't just young people. So yeah, 60% of everyone, all of us, would like to be able to work from home more going forward, having had this experiment at home. And young people also are enjoying it. You know, the stat about them maybe moving location is interesting, because it means that they are able to think about other things that they can fit in their life that they may not have at the moment. Just this morning, I live in South London, and I was driving through Clapham Common actually. It was 7:30 in the morning, so it was quite early, just before I was preparing for this webinar. And you know, there were a lot of young people, and they're you know, in their early 20s, doing lots of things before work because all they needed to do is go home and switch on their computer. They were playing basketball, they were doing skateboarding, they were you know, doing all their exercising. But the fact that people were being communal before work in a public place, knowing that their commute would just literally be moving to their front room or to their study, it seemed to me giving them additional opportunities that they didn't have before. And that's that balance that I was mentioning, you know, at the front. Young people are, Gen Z are very wary of that millennial burnout. They want to have a balance. They're already quite anxious as a generation. They don't want to have, they want work to be something that adds to their life rather than takes away from it. And so if you're able to think about this ethical side, or even the flexibility side, if you're thinking about how you're adding to that young person's life, how work can add to it, rather than it be take as an employer, that is the way to be thinking about it. Because they will work hard for you. That's their, you know, that's another trait. They're very hardworking as a generation.
Absolutely. So many interesting insights and discussion points. We're getting a few questions coming through now, Josephine, so we've got a few minutes. First of all, Daniel Mayhew, he just missed the start of the presentation, and he didn't discover what the sample size was for this research.
Oh yeah, of course. So, when I talk about the State of the Youth Nation research, it's always 1,000 16 to 24s, nationally representative across the UK. I did pull in some other research, if you remember the Barclays apprenticeship work, and some YouGov research, and some others were sort of dotted around, but the majority is based on our State of the Youth Nation, which is 1,000 16 to 24s.
Excellent, thank you. We've got another question around you know, the statistic, which took me aback just as much as it did you, that 48% regretted going to university. It'd be very interesting to find out, you know, the reasons why. I mean, obviously it's very expensive. Maybe they didn't get the job that they were hoping for, or whatever. But some of the graduates that we actually interviewed from the last downturn in 2008 for another webinar, there were 4 of them, and 3 of them said what they did. They stayed at uni and they did a postgrad course. Now, typically in downturns, more graduates think, you know what, I'm going to ride this out, I'm going to stay at university. So it'd be very interesting to see whether, you know, they think it's still worth going to university.
It's happening, Dan. You're right. You're on the money there. So we're seeing a lot of interest in postgraduate study. A lot of our university clients are working with us to prepare for greater numbers this year, instead of going into employment, because it's predicted to be very difficult. So yes, I think that's what might happen. It does make you more employable theoretically with these transferable skills, especially if you're specializing at a higher level. But it is deferring to some extent, having to go into the workplace. And it'd be interesting to see, you know, during those postgraduate studies, to what extent those graduates are still keeping their foot in the water. You know, are they going to be doing little internships here and there just to keep connected to the world of work, or are they going to just sort of keep their head down and pretend nothing's happening until they emerge better qualified? I guess, yeah, 2008 recession suggests that that might be the case, keeping your head down and hoping for the best afterwards. But I guess that would mean it's going to be even harder for graduates to get jobs, because we'll be back in that situation where for every job, someone is coming with a master's, not just an undergrad degree, which makes it very hard when you're trying to start out in a career.
Yeah, it will be
You
interesting to
haven't,
see.
you haven't got a master's at it.
Yeah, it will be very interesting to see what decisions they make and how this affects the talent pool that's going to be available for recruiters this season. You also touched on a few other subjects, which we'd rather forget, like Brexit, but also AI and AI and automation. Of course, robots don't get COVID, so it'd be very interesting to see whether that is escalated, certainly within manufacturing and other sectors, and how that affects the labour market. So, you know, we're in a real state of flux right now, and it's you know, very confusing for graduates. And you said, you know, 2/3 don't actually know what to expect in a company that they're going to join. So, you know, this is a golden opportunity for employers to explain what their working environment is like, have videos of interviews with
open up their doors. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
exactly. You know, branding should really come to the fore right now to really sell the organization, what it stands for, and what the people are like, because that is really going to cut through.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, to some extent, looking at maybe the HE sector at the moment, they're facing something very similar insofar that, you know, their open days have all been cancelled, and they're trying to attract applicants to study with them. But, you know, when you're making that decision about university, what the key thing is actually, does it feel like I belong here? That's, you know, there's all that, you know, the league tables and the courses, and, you know, all of those things are important, but actually to actually commit and go somewhere, it's about whether you feel like you belong. And they're putting a lot of effort into trying to create those online resources.
Yeah.
At the moment, so that would be, I would suggest, a place to start looking, just to get inspiration. I'm not necessarily saying that they're doing it right, but at least they're a little bit ahead of the curve maybe at this point. Yeah,
absolutely. We're out of time, Josephine. I've been making lots of notes, finding, as I said, very engaging, very interesting. It's thrown up lots of discussion points, so perhaps we'll carry on this conversation on the LinkedIn forum, which you can find on our website, graduatenetwork.co.uk. We've had a great turnout today from our members. Thank you very much for giving your time today. But I'll call a close to the webinar right now. Just to let you know that our next webinar is on the 29th of July, Wednesday the 29th of July, called the GRB View. And I'll actually be interviewing 3 members of staff here about the conversations they've had with employers and graduates over the last 3 months. So a rare insight into our dealings with students, graduates and recruiters right now, and some of the things that they're talking about. So we'd love to have you along for that. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Josephine. Have a great day. Thank you.